Hi guys, this is Andrew, and this video is an intended tutorial based on the first tutorial for UniSA's Design Studio 4, and in this tutorial I'll be talking about tracing in Adobe Illustrator and importing those traced lines into 3ds Max. So just to go over what we've taught in the previous lessons, to start a new Illustrator file, you need to go up to File, New, and in the New Document panel, there are new document profiles. In this case, we're using Print, and then for the size, we use A3, and you can choose between landscape or portrait, and there are different options that you can choose from. If you choose web instead, you can choose the different web sizes that are standard, or there are different mobile devices standards that you can pick from, but in this case we're going to use A3 and landscape. Now, to place the image that you're going to trace into Illustrator, you need to go File, Place, and I have saved one of these images here. I'm going to use a different image to trace instead of this one. This one. Now, the image that we're going to trace, we need it to be locked before we start tracing it. That way, when we trace it, it's not going to get in the way. It's not going to start moving around. So to lock one of these images, all we need to do is select it, come up to Object, select Lock, Lock Selection. Now when I select the image, it won't move, and I can scale and move around it quite easily. So to trace the object, we need to use Bezier splines and the pen tool, and the pen tool can be found in the toolbar on the left, and in this case it is this particular button here. Now the pen tool, before we start creating the line, we need to change the fill and the line colors so that it's a better line to trace with. So in this case, if we replace the fill color with transparency, which is this little white box with a cross through it, and if we double click the line stroke color and pick a nice bright color like red and select OK, it means when we draw the line, it'll draw a red line, as you can see. So I'm going to do this middle section just to demonstrate. So when you draw it with a Bezier spline with the pen tool, to make it so that it is a Bezier spline, what you will need to do is click where you want the original anchor point to start, and then while you're holding down the mouse button, drag, and it's going to create these Bezier handles which allow us to control the intensity and curvature of the line. A lot of people have actually dragged this out very far and then gone to draw the next line, and as you can see, it's not actually drawing along that trace because of the intensity of those handles. So just be careful when you're drawing them. It does require some guesswork, and it's better to be careful than extreme in many cases. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start tracing these sections, and I'm going to make a few mistakes just to demonstrate the ability to edit the Bezier spline. Now, I mentioned to a few of the tutorial groups, but I don't think I mentioned it to all of them. It's very important that when you start creating the section lines of your plaster sections, that they need to be completely closed. So in this case we need to make sure that these 2 points are closing at the end. And a way to do that is literally just to when you finish the line, select the last point. So you need to make sure that anchor message comes up, and then if you click and drag, it'll give you the option to start controlling the tangent of that anchor point yet again, but it will then close the spline up. But another way to do it is to select the line with the direct selection tool, right click it and select join, and what that will do is it will actually close the whole line up and make it a complete loop. So that's something that I didn't mention in any of the classes. It was asked by a few people how to do, and that is exactly how to do it. And then you can just use the spline editing tools to change that from a straight line into a Bezier line. So moving on to the editing tools, there's the direct selection tool and the convert anchor point tool, which is accessible if you hold down the pen tool. There will be a little drop down menu and you can select the convert anchor point tool. So if we use the direct selection tool, we can select the line and then select the points, and we can then move them. And we can also change the angle and intensity of their Bezier handles. So in this case I'm going to move that onto this line here and bring the handles down, and there's another one further down here, so I can select that point and change it. Now I did mention within the classes how to create kinks within your line. To create a kink, what you can do is you can use the convert anchor point tool. If you select a handle while you're using that and move it, it will create a kink within your Bezier line, but in this case I don't actually have any kinks in my section, so I'm going to leave it empty. And that's one of our sections drawn up, or my sections, sorry. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to import this into 3ds Max. I'll start running 3ds Max now, so that by the time I finish talking about exporting, it's running. Now to export it, we need to save it as an older version of Illustrator, but the file can only have splines in it. We can't have any images, so we need to get rid of the original image. Probably the best way to do this is to save this as a standard file, and then delete the image and then save it as the image that's then the file that is then importable into 3ds Max. The way to get rid of that unlocked image is to go up to Object and select Unlock All, which will now allow us to select the image and then delete it. So I've just hit delete then, leaving us with our spline section. Just excuse the errors that I get with 3ds Max, it's just something to do with my computer. So now when I save this as an Illustrator file, we need just to reiterate the fact that when you save it, after you've saved it, it's going to give you the option of the version. Now the version that you need to select is Illustrator 8, not the latest version Illustrator gives you the option for. So if you select Illustrator 8, it's going to give you some warning about some legacy file formats. That just means it's basically telling you that it's saving the file format as an old file format, just to reiterate the point. So if you select yes, now when we're in 3ds Max, when we import it, so if we click the Max button at the top left, it changes depending on the different Max versions. The Max version in Uni has a green M up the top left, and if you select import, it will allow us to go to where we need to select. Now the options it's going to give us to import is merge or replace the current scene. In this case we want to merge it, and when we import it wants to import as a single object or multiple. In this case it would be preferable if we just default select multiple objects, and what that's going to do is it's going to bring in that as that Bezier spline. So we can now use this in 3ds Max. There was one more question that was asked of me, which was how to join lines up. So if we had two different splines in Illustrator and we needed to join them up, sorry, I'm just going to give that a color. The best way to do that is to use the join tool, which is the exact same tool that we used to fill that hole in on this section over here. But to do that you're going to need to use the direct selection tool again. So I'm going to move in on here. The best way is to drag those two points together so that they lock, and then if you use the direct selection tool to select both lines and then select those 2 points together using the window selection tool, if you right click on it and select join, it's going to come up with a different join dialog option box, whether or not you want it to be a corner or smooth. What this means is that the resulting anchor is either going to be a kink or it's going to be tangential. So smooth means it's going to smooth through. We select OK. These two lines are now one, which is answering one of the questions that was asked of me. So I hope that's helped with you guys, and I'll see you at the next tutorial session. Have fun.